This time I will call the March 3rd, 2025 County Council meeting to order. It's always nice to see such a good crowd who joins us for council meetings. Appreciate you being here tonight. I'm going to provide the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the freedom and the opportunity that we have to join together here today to govern our county. We thank you for the many blessings and mercies that you give us. We pray for those who serve us in uniform, whether local, state, or national. We ask for your protection over them as they look to protect over our people, our community, and our nation. And we ask for blessings on their families as well. I say a special prayer tonight for all of those impacted by the wildfires here in South Carolina and beyond. I ask for your intervention to stop the devastation, to protect our people and our lands. And finally, Lord, I ask for your wisdom and guidance over the matters we have jurisdiction here tonight. I pray that our decisions would be honorable to you and in the best interest of the people that we serve. In your Son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, wow. Tonight, we do not have any oath of office or appearances. We'll move straight into our public forum session, and I'm shocked. We only have two individuals. So these individuals who will come forward, if you will please remember to give your name and address when I call your name. Make sure that your comments are directed towards matters that the council has jurisdiction over. I will say that there is an individual who wishes to speak about CILFAB. One of the things that I need to make sure that folks understand is that this issue is before a judge. A judge is the one that determines the issues with that, and I want to make sure that that's clear. With that said, when I call your name, you'll have 2 minutes to speak, and if you'll kindly cut off your comments so I don't have to be rude and cut you off, then that makes all of us in a better place. First individual, Vladimir Drobot. And I apologize if I massacred the name.
Perfectly fine, Ms. Cox. So, Vladimir Drobot, 463 Cranbourne Chase, Fort Mill, South Carolina. I would like to talk a little bit about silane. So silane is a pyrophoric gas which CILFAB is going to use in mass quantities. It's going to store about 27,000 pounds or 12 tons of it. You probably have heard about methane explosion, which is a cousin of silane that causes a lot of devastation in the coal mines, in the houses. It can destroy the house with just tens of pounds of methane exploded. If we're talking about silane compared to methane, it's pyrophoric, so it can actually ignite by itself with contacting with the air. And we have 27,000 pounds right next to 2 new schools. And if that explosion happens, God knows what's going to happen in this case. And if it may ignite, it may explode, or it may not ignite and spread around, mixed with the air, and then it's going to be poisoned. Everybody's going to be poisoned around there, and there's a lethal dose, which is going to be about 0.4 by 0.4 miles if it's spread out and mixed with the air, which includes both schools. 12 tons of silane, if mixed with the air at a deadly dose of 10,000 ppm, will take approximately 0.4 by 0.4 miles. Hazard summary from the National Institute of Health includes that it can affect when you breathe in, contact can irritate the skin and eyes, breathing silane can irritate the nose and throat, or it may affect the kidneys. It's a corrosive chemical, or it can cause a really, really big health problems called pulmonary edema and will require a medical attention in the ER. Unfortunately, SilFab officials, they misspell silane, which makes me think they do not know what they're talking about. It's not late to correct what you guys did, including silane.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Scott Kokenauer.
Hey everybody, hey, Scott Kokenauer, 122 West Oak Street in the beautiful Whiteville Park neighborhood of downtown Fort Mill. So, hey, I'm here tonight. Fortunately, I was able to have a meeting on February the 2nd with Mr. Couch and Mr. Hamilton, and we discussed some items. We don't always agree on everything, but we made a little progress, and it was a very enjoyable, I'm sure it was their most enjoyable hour of work they had all year, by the way. So, and as I was leaving, I said, let me run down to our assessor's office, which they've helped me before on stuff. I said, let me just go ahead and see about dropping my property taxes, since I feel like my value is going to be decreased, has been decreased. And the nice lady at the register said, that property is owned by York County. And she politely got me to the back. And Mr. Weaver, let me get those names. Rob Weaver and Turner Maven, extremely helpful. I assumed I got processed by pennies. They printed the paperwork out, actually got processed by that sewer line that we've had numerous discussions on. So I no longer own that property at that time. So that's where we all kind of agreed it looked like it was an error. It could be corrected. But my first, whatever, I had to go drive back to Fort Mill. Didn't call my wife until I almost got there because she is officially pissed off right now because of this. Went to Mac and Mac. I don't know what that's going to cost me. Of course, William was out that day and busy that next morning. County did contact me, and Miss Laurel Trail was extremely helpful, understand where we were, got everything handled. So staff could not have been any better on this matter. I feel like we need to be compensated on this. This is what I consider a $12 million error it could have cost, because this property could have been sold on the courthouse steps. So I was going to ask you for 5%, which would have been $600,000. I'm going to be extremely nice and just ask for $240,000 to be processed. I ask council to direct staff to do that for us. Thank you, sir. Oh, and I'm going to leave this.
Thank you, sir. If you leave it with the clerk, she can share it with us. That concludes our public forum session here tonight. We move now to our consent agenda. I will say with management's approval, we will move item number 15 to the first item of new business. Are there any other items that need to be removed? If not, do we have a motion to approve consent agenda with that amendment?
So moved. Yeah, second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to our first public hearing item. It is found on page 8 for the council members who are following along in their agenda packets. First item we have is rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 25-01, tax map number 71800007300620009, to rezone from RSF 40 to RMX 10, 3 parcels that total 7.46 acres in District 1. Mr. Buono?
Yes, this application does include those 3 parcels. It's at the intersection of Pleasant Road and Lurcliffe Place. So the request is to go to RMX 10. So here is a sketch of the proposal, looking to create a small subdivision out of these 3 parcels here. Be 15 total new homes under the sketch design. Here's the zoning map for the area. So this area is predominantly including these 3 subject parcels, RSF 40, residential single family. The comp plan similarly shows the future land use recommendation for this area is single family residential. Staff recommends denial of the request as it's inconsistent with both the comp plan, future land use map, and the existing zoning in the surrounding area. The existing district aligns with the single family residential designation in the future land use map, and the requested RMX 10 district is more appropriate for neighborhood residential which is going to be that orangish color outside of this area. All of the existing lots that are on Lure Cliff Place are at least 1 acre, and 11 of the 17 there are at least 2 acres, if not more. RMX 10 would permit lots as small as 10,000 square feet by comparison. The RMX 10 district also allows multiplex dwellings. That's not what the applicant is proposing here, but if land changes hands, certainly those duplexes, triplexes could be placed on this property. By a vote of 5-0, Planning Commission also recommends denial. And I'll just state that we've received an email from a representative for the applicant that they are requesting that council defer this item.
Okay, and that's one thing that I do want to make sure that council is aware of, is that the applicant themselves has requested a deferral of first reading. That doesn't change the fact that we have publicized a public hearing on this matter, and we will continue to have our public hearing as published. Are there any questions for staff before we move into the public hearing?
Yeah, I have one question. So on these properties, were there ever any external deeds or et cetera that are associated to these properties outside of just the zoning classification of RSF 40 that you're aware of?
Are you referring to any particular deed restrictions
Yeah,
on
any
the
deed
property?
restrictions.
I'm not aware of any. We can
Okay.
certainly do some deed research and make sure that there aren't any that would preclude this type of development.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Jonathan. We will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? If you will just come forward, give your name and address.
May it please the council, Madam Chairperson, legal counsel, Mr. Huckabee. Many years. I'm Cam Hallford. I've practiced law in Fort Mill for 22 years. Office address 238 Rockmont Drive in Fort Mill. I've recently relocated out of York County to be in Barnwell County, but I'm here tonight on behalf of Cliff Lure Estates Homeowners Association, which is a nonprofit. 3 of our members wish to speak tonight. Mr. Audette, thank you for the question. There is a declaration. This development was done in 1978, and the restrictive covenants of the declaration were recorded. I'll be happy to forward a copy. I didn't bring a copy for council, and I'm sure my very capable colleague is capable of providing a copy of those. They are recorded in the clerk of court for York County at book 575 at page 891, again dated July 25th, 1978, recorded August the 3rd. So on behalf of the HOA, and I've not met half the people who are going to be a part of this nonprofit, they are speaking against it. They're in support of staff's 5-0 denial of the request. I understand it's been withdrawn. Kind of wish I'd known here before I drove here tonight. That's good to see old friends, and I will let you hear from some of the owners now. But the notices of hearing that came to all of our owners, I'd also point out that you'll hear from some of the owners that while there have been some form of postings on Pleasant Road, there have been none within Cliff Lure Estates or Lure Cliff. And these are not major avenues of traffic. These roadways serve and or a dead end into a homeowners association. It's been single family without incident since 1978. My apologies, I can't talk tonight. Since 1978, I did have that right. And I think you're going to hear from the owners that the change of character is not welcome. It would change the nature and the character of the neighborhood. And they were asked that it be followed, that the 5-0 dismissal and no further readings occur. That be the board's pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward, give your name and address.
My name is David Estes. I live at 1341 Lure Cliff Place, Fort Mill. I've been a resident there since 2008. My wife bought the property in 1986. She passed away in 2021, so I inherited it fully at that point. This is Cliff Lure Estates was composed of 2 roads. One is Lower Cliff Place, and the other is Cliff Lower Place, or Avenue, something. Anyway, on Cliff Lower Place, there's 12 homes currently. It's a cul-de-sac. The current proposal is to build 15 new homes at the entrance of Lower Cliff Place. So he is asking to build more homes than are currently on all the rest of the properties on that street. People walk up and down that street. We have children, mothers that take their children in strollers up and down that street. So everybody on Lower Cliff Place is going to have to walk past 15 townhomes or whatever he may decide to build to get to the school bus. Now, traffic on Pleasant Road also, as most of you probably know, is horrible. Trying to turn left or right out of Lower Cliff Place is almost impossible, and it takes too long now, okay? And that's now. Carowinds Boulevard, Pleasant Road has become quite a cut-through, alternate artery for I-77 whenever there's a problem. It's just horrible as it is now. This is only going to add to that. Traffic, congestion, and it doesn't fit with our subdivision. So that's my thing.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against?
Good evening. My name is Chris Rembert. I live at 1325 Lower Cliff Place in Fort Mill. I'm here tonight to respectfully oppose the rezoning request referenced in case 25-01. There's not much more I think I can follow up with that excellent example that my neighbor David just gave. I'm a 22-year resident of Lower Cliff Place. My wife and I live there, have raised our 3 children. It's a beautiful small community consisting of 12 homes, like David said. Each home is at least an acre. Most of them are closer to 2, and then there are some that are even larger. These larger private lots on the small road with low traffic, that's really what makes the neighborhood so desirable. That's what attracted us to move there 22 years ago. Like you said earlier, rezoning this property is not consistent with the future land use map or the York Forward 2035 comprehensive plan. It would definitely have a significant negative impact on traffic. And this would affect not only Lower Cliff, it would affect Cliff Lower, it would affect Saddlegate, Pleasant Road in general. We already have issues with Pleasant Road. The light at Publix, backs up beyond Lower Cliff at rush hour every day. David mentioned that we have residents that enjoy getting outside, walking on the road, pushing their children in strollers. And if we had this kind of traffic increase, there would be definitely a problem with safety of those activities. And just to mention, if this thing didn't go through, the 15 single-family homes being built, and let's say the land was rezoned, but that didn't work out and it was resold, we could probably end up with duplex or triplex, quadplex housing. And I think there are some issues there, where we could have even more people than just the 15 single-family homes. In closing, I would like to ask that you take into consideration the voices of the residents and the recommendation made by the county staff report and deny this request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against?
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Kaiser, and I live at 1355 Lower Cliff Place. And I live there because my family and I were fortunate enough to find 2 beautiful wooded acres in a quiet, secluded neighborhood with excellent schools in a town that we love, and that's sort of like finding a golden unicorn. I join my neighbors here tonight to respectfully request that this rezoning request be denied. As neighbors, it is our belief that the original developers of our neighborhood intended for it to remain single-family homes on lots of at least 1 acre, most are 2 to 5. Our neighborhood has joined together to reaffirm and protect that original intent, which has served our neighborhood and the town of Fort Mill well. To that end, we are here to ask that you, our city council members, deny this rezoning request. We ask that the rezoning request be denied because there are stormwater impacts that would be realized. There is not adequate water or sewer infrastructure available now to meet that new demand. And rezoning the land and creating a new infrastructure would burden the utility usage and would mean pushing the increased water and waste to surrounding neighbors, their ponds, our streets, and our sewers. We respectfully ask that this rezoning request be denied because of the findings from FEMA's National Flood Hazard Layer Map, which indicates that some or all of the property in question lies in a flood zone. We ask that this rezoning request be denied because of the impact on local schools. While Pleasant Knoll Elementary and Pleasant Knoll Middle Schools are closest, they are very full, which may mean that the district zones the new families for Flint Hill Elementary and Middle, which you are well aware is already embroiled in zoning litigation due to its proximity to SILFAB. So adding more students and their families to already burdened schools would be a self-created hardship on the town of Fort Mill. We also have concerns about the inevitable increased traffic and its impact to the school bus stop at the already very busy intersection of Cliff and Pleasant. So in closing, we respectfully ask that the York County Council abide by its own county staff recommendation that this rezoning request be denied.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against? If you'll come forward.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Natalia Mitchell, 965 Bridle Path. I actually happen to live across the street from Lower Cliff and Settlegate community, and I just want to attest to the situation with the traffic. If I have to leave my house at a certain hour of the day, sometimes I work from home to pick up my kids in the daycare, which is maybe 100 or 200 meters down the street, but I'm not able to walk because there's no sidewalk. A trip that should take me maybe 1 minute to get to the daycare, I can sit for 20 minutes trying to get out of my neighborhood into the Pleasant Road, right, as the traffic gets backed up. So I kindly ask that you guys consider the situation. I think it's not a good idea to approve this proposal for rezoning.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against?
How you doing? My name is Paul Erickson. I'm at 1326 Cliffler Lane. Want to thank everybody for coming today and just want to reiterate everything they said. I believe their names were Cliff and Lucy, and they put in this deed to protect that property. So we're here to protect that property and their wishes. Be just like a scene out of Yellowstone, right? Keep the land, that's the way they wanted it. They shouldn't be able to come in and put 15 houses on these single lots. It wasn't made to subdivide, the covenant covers it. We should protect the land and all the other items they talked about. And what I'd like, if anybody hasn't, come over my house, we'll bring you down there, let you see it. Then you can see for yourselves what it is. There's no way we could put 15 houses on that property, especially, as they said, no water, sewer, all those items. So please abide by the restrictions and deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to defer?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to defer first reading.
Until next meeting.
Deferral is to the next meeting.
Okay, motion to defer to next meeting, excuse me.
Second.
I'm surprised you hadn't lost that already. All those in favor say,
Madam Chair, discussion real quick.
Mr. Huckabee.
Do we know what the deed restriction says?
I think for purposes of this hearing, the applicant himself has requested that a deferral be put in order. I don't know if there is a legal issue there. That usually signals some issues. So if there's something that legal wants to comment on or I mean, deed
I have not seen the
restrictions.
deed restrictions. We'll pull up the site that Mr. Halford mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I would request that information, yeah, we don't hear, now the public hearing is closed, we're done with that, but we will ask for legal to look into the deed restriction issue. Any other discussion?
No, I just won't be here on the 17th, so for the record, I wouldn't be voting to approve it. I'd be voting for a denial.
Any other discussion?
no, I was going to piggyback off of Watt's comment in regards to making sure that deed restriction does get over to county to get it on the record. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Motion on the table is to defer to the next reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We move now to item number 2 of the public hearing, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 25-02, tax map number 738000042 to rezone from RMX 10 to OI 1.01 acres in District 7. Mr. Bueno?
Yes, this is a 1 acre property. You can see here on the map on a little land peninsula that's bounded by Doby's Bridge Road, the Fort Mill Parkway, and Hare Road. There are a couple of single-family homes in this location surrounded by parcels that are in the jurisdiction of the town of Fort Mill. The request is to go to the OI district. The applicant would like to construct an 8,000 square foot office building. You can see an aerial photograph of the lot here. You can see the adjacent single-family homes that are there. Here's the zoning for the area. Again, that hatched area is the jurisdiction of Fort Mill. Here, the existing zoning is RMX 10, residential mix, 10,000 square foot lot minimum. And there's a smattering of county property in this area in between the town parcels. So here's the Fort Mill zoning map. See a lot of the properties that are adjacent to these single-family homes that are still in an unincorporated area. Those town parcels are zoned highway commercial. So long-term, a lot of these properties that are on the parkway or just off of the parkway will eventually transition to some form of commercial. So here's the future land use map. Our land use map calls for this area to be single-family residential, neighborhood residential, and the Fort Mill map is below that, and they call for this to be mixed-use neighborhood. Staff recommends approval. It is consistent with the comp plan and future land use map. At first blush, you might say, well, it's not residential. How could it match with neighborhood residential? But there is text in the comp plan that says if you have an intersection of major roads, that's an area that's appropriate for office and institutional uses for neighborhood residential designations. The application property, as I mentioned, is on a block that's bounded by 3 roads, and including jurisdiction of Fort Mill property around it that's commercial. And that OI district is compatible with that highway commercial district that's in the town, and it matches the town's future land use designation, and it is a pretty good transition from the single-family homes that are there to highway commercial's much less intense use to go to OI. By a vote of 5-0, Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff?
So, yeah, Jonathan, real quick, just explain for me again, what is actually going on this lot?
An 8,000 square foot office building is the proposal.
8,000, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jonathan. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? If you'll come forward and give your name and address.
Hey everybody, Scott Kokenauer, 122 West Oak Street, beautiful Whiteville Park, downtown Fort Mill. For 25 years, I've volunteered my time sitting on Planning Commission, Historic Review Board, and Zoning Appeals This property is contiguous with the city town limits of Fort Mill. I really feel like it needs to come into the town. It is in one of our nodes or sub-nodes. The commercial property doesn't bother me at all. I think that area is going to be developed that way more into commercial. And with our school taxes being as high as they are, it would definitely help our school system. So I'm all for buildings like that to support our schools and stuff like that. So, but with it being contiguous with the town, especially if they are offering any of the utility services, this really needs to be deferred and brought into the town of Fort Mill. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak against?
Carmen Hamilton. I live at 1788 North Doby's Bridge Road, and I don't have a pointer, but you can see my property on one of those exhibits. First, before I forget, if there's any way to defer this until Ms. Cloninger is back, I feel like if you rode out there, and a lot of you are not familiar, you know, firsthand with that area, you would see right offhand that it's not necessarily appropriate for the area. Yes, there's highway commercial on the other side of the street, which is town of Fort Mill, I believe, for the ballpark, extra parking, and whatever, you know, they may have plans for it and it's zoned highway commercial, but on the staff report, it doesn't indicate, it shows it a little bit on the map, but it doesn't indicate clearly that there are, I believe, 4 residences that are still residences immediately surrounding that lot. On one side, on the same side of the road, next to it, is a highway commercial property that is a part of the town, but it's a home. It is still a home operating as a business, and you can't even tell that. And I live directly across from that open field, so I would know. I mean, if it was going to cause a nuisance, it would have caused me a nuisance by now. And I don't even know that it's a business. And it looks like a home, a residence. So planning might, you know, could project, okay, this whole area is turning commercial. It's eventually going to turn commercial, but we're still there and we're immediately surrounding it. And anything that happens, you know, right there to further congest the area is going to cause issues. There would be other people here, you know, who can't stand the traffic to begin with as it is now. But you put one more thing there on top of the Harris Teeter that's going, you know, in at one of the corners. You've got 2 other lots on the corner of the bypass that either have projects, highway commercial, that are already approved or they're seeking to be approved, will be approved soon. And that might be an appropriate place for those heavy-duty businesses. The only thing I could see possibly as positive about this is that it is less intensive. The zoning that they're asking for is less intensive, but on one of the permitted uses, it said a bank or a daycare. And I personally don't see that as less intensive, because if it was a daycare, if he decided, you know, after he gets approval to, oh no, I think I want to make it a daycare. I mean, that's dedicated traffic daily, literally coming past my residence, you know, back and forth. And the roads can't handle it as it is. He wasn't required to do a traffic study for an 8,000 square foot office building. No requirement to do a traffic study. When you don't even know exactly how it's going to end up, like what it's going to end up being. We don't know what uses he plans to put in there. So what if it was a daycare? I feel like that would at least, you know, call for a traffic study. There's already a daycare on the back side of one of the neighboring properties, a heavy-duty commercial daycare. So the point is, you know, just further congesting an already congested area that's even going to get worse. It's just, it's a 2-lane minor road, which it says that in one place on the staff report, but then calls Doby's Bridge a major roadway, you know, when they're trying to, you know, make it fit, you know, fit the comprehensive plan. I don't see it. It's not time for it. We need some kind of a buffer that's not a business. I mean, I get the whole transition, but it's not even walkable because there are no sidewalks on that side of the road. And if he's going to use it for his construction business, I don't see how anybody would need to walk to that business anyway. So, I mean, that's, you know, another small point I would make. But if you saw the area, you would see that it's not exactly how it's been portrayed. There is a lot of highway commercial property there, but it is still highly residential. And there, if you look on the aerial map, you'll see that there are, I think it was 4 that I counted, residential lots that are in the immediate vicinity of this lot. There's 3, 2 behind it and 2 to one side. And then mine is 2 doors down. I won't even call it 2 doors down because one is an open field and one is that business that you can't even tell is a business. So we would just like for y'all to consider that. We're still there. You know, it's just too early. Maybe when everything, you know, with the roads get cleared up and expanded and, you know, the developers of the big projects, you know, fix the roads so that they're not as congested, maybe this could slide in, you know, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who has any other comments that were not reflected? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Do we have a motion to close public hearing?
Yeah, motion to close. public
Second.
hearing.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Ms. Cloninger's not here tonight. I did speak
Right.
with her, and she is
Yeah.
supportive of this request. I will tell folks in the audience that when you have a rezoning, you are required to have a public hearing as well as 3 readings. This is the first reading on this matter. There would have to be 2 additional readings that would have to be approved before this would pass or before this would move forward. We do not have a second. I think that's unfortunate without having the applicant here. I did speak with her individually, and she.
I'll second.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second for discussion.
Thank you. I couldn't call her this weekend, and I couldn't call her coming over today. I planned on it. I was on 2 other calls. Can you share what she said about this particular?
My understanding is she's
rezoning?
supportive of the request, but I'm sure she's going to want to hear the comments from the public
Okay.
before she would approve second or third. I
right.
simply asked her what her preference was on that, and was under the impression that she has spoken with some other council members too, but maybe not.
Okay. All right.
Do we have any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, and again, I appreciate the comments. Again, there is, as Chrissy was saying, there is 3 readings here. Again, this is just the first one. So when Debbie is back, then we can move forward with second reading and have her hear out, you know, any other concerns, et cetera. So thank you. Appreciate
We'll
it.
make sure that Ms. Cloninger has these comments available to her.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes first reading. If we can please make sure to note for the file that those comments be made to Ms. Cloninger. Moving now to item number 3, I got to put my glasses on for this one. Council to hold a public hearing and consider first reading of an ordinance adopting a public education facilities impact fee to be imposed on all new residential development in the Fort Mill School District. Number 4, pursuant to York County Ordinance Number 2718, impact fee procedures to ensure that the public education facilities will be available and adequate to accommodate the need for public education facilities expected to be generated from the school children in new residential developments in the school district based on the district's level of service standards and capital improvements plan. To assign the cost of such public education facilities on a proportionate share basis to new residential development with an established impact fee for a single-family detached dwelling unit at $29,640 and an established impact fee for a multifamily dwelling unit at $20,796. To authorize an intergovernmental agreement between York County and Fort Mill School District. Number 4, defining the respective rights, responsibilities and obligations of the parties regarding the impact fee, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Mr. Buono, any comments?
Yes, just introducing this topic for you all. We did cover impact fees at your workshop last month. So as you're aware, the Fort Mill School District does have an active impact fee that the county collects on their behalf, and that is set to expire at the end of June this summer. So the district is proposing that you consider a new fee that would become effective on July 1. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Leanne Lordo with the school district.
Good evening. My name is Leanne Lordo. I'm Associate Superintendent CFO for Fort Mill School District. Tonight, we are very pleased to appear before you with our request to renew the Fort Mill School District impact fee. For the benefit of the new council members, I'm just going to make a couple comments in summary before we turn it over to some of our consultants. We were here in front of you 7 years ago in the spring of 2018. At that time, you approved the current fee in accordance with our comprehensive impact fee study, which was conducted and showed a need for the fee of the $18,158 per single-family unit and $12,020 per multifamily. Since that time, we have collected $73 million, $73,595,988. Have to give you the whole number. As of the close of business last Friday, we have currently submitted to York County, and this includes a draw that we will submit this week. We've submitted a total of $65,602,061 in requests toward construction cost of our newest elementary school and middle school. And the breakdown of that is $54.8 million towards our elementary school and $10.7 million towards our middle school. In fact, Flint Hill Elementary, which is the name of our new elementary school that will open this coming August, will be paid 100% by impact fees with no bonded debt on that school, which is remarkable, and we're very proud of that. We understand there's a good bit of emotion related to the new amount that is in the study. But we would just like to remind everyone that it is a mathematical calculation. It is based on the necessity to provide classroom seats at the current construction cost. Our enrollment has continued to steadily increase, even in light of the COVID implications that we have experienced here. Our enrollment today is 18,410 students, and we're the largest school district now in York County. During the prior study, it was estimated that we would be permitting 2,903 permits for single-family homes. To date, we have 2,712 new permits which have been issued during the time of our study, and that's about 93% of what was estimated. We often get that question is, where are we today based on what was estimated in 2018? Multifamily is the same trend, and we've seen 96% of the permits estimated have been issued to date for multifamily, which is apartments and townhomes. And overwhelmingly, our community has not wavered as they have continued to support our school district by passing the most recent bond referendum in April of 2024 at $204 million. Tonight, we have with us Ben Griffin with Tischler Bice Consultants, who completed our study, and Ben will present the details. We've also asked Jim Britton and Jay Gaither with Leitner Management Group to give you some updated information on construction costs, because we know that is a question, and also how we come about the enrollment projection methodologies. And then concluding our presentation will be Christy Spears, who's our current board chair, who will share some thoughts with you from our school board. We've provided you with the questions and answers that the York County Planning Commissioners presented to us, and I believe those were sent out to you last week because we anticipated you may have some of those same questions, so we thought that may be helpful. But we're glad to continue as you go through the next process of these readings. We are glad to provide any additional information or data that you may need as you consider our request. And lastly, from my seat and my goal with the school district, I want to assure you, we will continue to provide as much tax relief to our taxpayers as possible using these impact fees collected and minimizing what we have to raise in debt millage to cover these construction costs. We've all heard and we've used the phrase growth paying for growth, and that is certainly what our goal is here. Thank you for your support tonight and in the future. We do appreciate the relationship that we have with you all and with the York County staff, and we continue to look forward to working with you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Griffin with Tischler Bice, who is going to review the study that they completed on our behalf.
Council members, county staff, thanks for giving me time to speak tonight. I'm Ben Griffin with Tischler Bice. I've been working with the school district for several months on updating this study. We want to walk you through the findings tonight, but Tischler Bice, we have nationwide experience. We worked with many communities in South Carolina, and this isn't the first study we've done. Just as a quick impact fee refresher for those of you who don't calculate them every day, impact fees are one-time payments for growth-related infrastructure, usually charged at the time of a permit. So it's important to realize this is something that new development pays. This is not existing development paying that. Can't use impact fees for operations, maintenance, repair, replacement, rehab. This is new capacity funded with the impact fees. And this is not a tax. It's a contract that binds you as a county to providing these improvements. But there are three things that we have to prove in any impact fee study. The first is need. So there needs to be capital costs associated with this. We're showing enrollment growth, so there is need for additional student seats. And so that's how we're proving need in this. There must be a benefit to the fee payer. So we look at that a couple ways. We could look at a geographic benefit. So in this case, you have a school district. So that is our benefit area. And then we want to make sure that you're spending the money within a timely fashion. And in South Carolina, you do have to, these projects have to be constructed within 3 years of the date in the CIP. So that's how we're making sure that you are spending this money in a timely fashion. And then we need to make sure that the fees are proportionate to demand. We'll go through the student generation rates, but essentially with a school impact fee, you're looking at how many public school students are generated by different types of residential uses, because we're going to assess these fees per student. There's a capital cost per student. So on average, how many public school students does a single family unit generate? How many public school students does a multifamily unit generate? And that's how we make sure that the fees are proportionate to the actual demand generated by different types of residential uses. The calculation of an impact fee is fairly straightforward. You take that demand unit, so in this case, it's the number of public school students. You multiply that by the infrastructure unit, so in this case, it's the square footage per student. And then you multiply that by the cost per student, and that's essentially how you come up with the fee. There are a lot of other factors that go into that, including credits, and looking, and comparing different levels of service, but essentially it's, the demand unit times how many square feet times the cost. With the credits, there are three types of credits. A site-specific credit, that's handled after an impact fee is adopted. So if a developer constructs or dedicates something that is within the study, you would provide a credit to the impact fee that they would pay. The debt service and dedicated revenue credits, those are types of credits that are baked into the study. So it reduces the proposed impact fee to prevent future development from paying once through the impact fee and then once through that future debt service payment or that dedicated revenue source. So making sure that we're not charging twice for the same improvement. So in South Carolina, we have to keep impact fees in a separate interest-bearing account. You have to spend the money within 3 years of the scheduled CIP date. There's an annual report. You've got to look at these every 5 years. And if you want to change the maximum allowable fee or the proposed fee, you do have to update the study. And then we have to look at the impact on affordable housing. All right, so in the PDF, it does not look like this. Essentially, I have the PDF here, so I can give you the numbers. So this is just showing the student generation rates. So to calculate this, we take the enrollment, which I believe is an October enrollment total, for the 2024-2025 school year, and we divide it by the number of housing units within the school district. And so what this is saying is, a single-family unit on average has about 0.545 public school students per unit. A multifamily unit has about 0.384. What's important here is to think about it as, okay, if we got 1,000 new housing units, what does that look like? So if you got 1,000 new single-family units, you're looking at almost 550 public school students in those new housing units. If you got 1,000 new multifamily units, you're looking at almost 400 units. So, as you keep issuing these permits, the projected enrollment keeps increasing. Now, an argument we often get is, well, what if it's someone, what if it's empty nesters buying the home? What's important to keep in mind with impact fees is you're paying for the capital cost for the life of that unit. So just because there are no public school students in it today, there could be in the future. And you could have a family in it now as a brand new family, and then they become empty nesters. So it's a point in time for the demand factors, but it is the lifetime of the unit for the actual impact fee. All right, so this shows projected enrollment. So in the current school year, about 18.2, that was in October, looking at a 10-year projected increase of about 5,200 students. So, we need 1,800 seats for elementary school students. We need about 1,300 for middle school students, and we need just shy of 2,100 seats for high school students. So, this is showing that need for additional capacity. So, looking forward, we're looking at 2 elementary schools, a middle school, and 2 high schools. Total additional seats about 5,200. And so, this is what the impact fee is based on, these potential projects. So for elementary schools, the left side is showing what exists today and that existing level of service. What we're doing here is just saying, on average, elementary schools provide about 116 square feet per student and about 0.03 acres per student. So we want to base the fee on that. So maintaining that existing level of service, because we can't charge future development for a higher level of service than existing development receives. So while we may refer to this as the maximum allowable fee, we're using the lowest level of service that we can use. On the right side, you see the capacity utilization. So we're at about 77% capacity utilization today. If we did not add any additional seats, but we grew as projected, your capacity utilization would increase to about 94%. Because you're looking at adding about 2,400 seats, your capacity utilization over the next 10 years decreases slightly. It's a rounding error, but it's about 0% increase or decrease. But what this is saying is, you're adding the appropriate amount of additional seats to the projected enrollment increase. For middle schools, you're providing about 144 square feet per student today, about 0.04 acres per student. If you look at the right side, you're at 81% capacity today. If you don't add additional seats, you're at 105% capacity in 10 years. So the 1,200 additional seats limit your capacity utilization increase to only a 5% increase. And then for high schools, you're providing about 166 square feet today per student. What you also see in that bottom left corner, which is cut off, is your planned high school additions. Actually, they would add fewer square feet than what is currently offered. So instead of sticking with that existing level of service, we said, hey, if we're really only adding 134 square feet per student in these new schools or these new additions, Let's use that to limit the amount of an increase. And so for the planned high school capacity utilization, it increases from 80% to 109% if we do nothing. If we add the 1,600 seats, we're still looking at an increase of about 9%, because, we're looking at 2,100 students and we're adding 1,600 seats. For cost factors at top, that's the planned cost, or our current cost estimates for these planned projects. And so we're going to use these costs per square foot in the fee calculation, but we're looking at about $521 a square foot for elementary schools, $442 for middle schools, and $576 for high schools. For that projected land cost, we're looking at recent land acquisitions, and so it's about $187,000 an acre used in the study, and that's based on 2022 and 2024 land acquisition. We include a debt credit. So because you have existing debt, we want to make sure that we credit the impact fee study for those future debt service payments made by these future fee payers. So we want to make sure that they're not paying for existing school capacity and new school capacity. So we provide a credit for that existing debt. We also provide a credit for future debt. So we can look at your impact fee fund balance, the existing debt, and then say, hey, this is, really we're trying to find $285 million for, these schools and this additional land. And, we can look at what we would project in impact fee revenue and then say, well, there is still a gap. And so we want to make sure that we provide a credit for that future debt service so we're not double charging. And so this is where all the numbers come together. The left side is showing the capital cost per student. So for an elementary school student, it's about $49,000. For a middle school student, it's about $55,000, and about $61,000 for a high school student. All we're doing is multiplying that by the number of students per unit. And so you can see that at the bottom, we're looking at a proposed impact fee for a single family unit of $29,640, and for a multifamily unit of $20,796. And then finally, just a comparison to the existing study and the proposed study. What's really driving this fee increase? Well, construction costs based on school levels are up 28 to 89%. Land costs are up 114%. The debt credit is up 40%, so that helps limit the increase of the fee. But ultimately, the net capital cost per student is increasing 35 to 67%. And you have slightly higher student generation rates compared to your existing study. So just looking at construction cost increases, if you had the same level of service, you would expect a higher fee just to offset all these construction cost increases that we've seen over the last few years. That is the final slide, so if you have any questions or comments, I can answer them.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. So in 2018, I see the current fees on page 8, I guess, of the 27 pages. Single family was $18,158, and multifamily was $12,020. My question is this: you just mentioned that the cost of, I think, land and the improvement range between 35 and 67%. Does the state not allow the school district to have a cost of living increase per year to the amount? It has to stay static for that 7-year period? Or can you have a cost of living increase so that someone coming in 3 years from now, land costs have gone up, improvement costs have gone up, but your allocation hasn't gone up? Is that
Great
state
question.
regulated?
So for the South Carolina impact fees, if you make a change to the maximum allowable amount, then you have to update the study.
You have to update the study?
Yes, so you could do this every single year if you really wanted to, but any change to the maximum allowable fee results in a new study.
All right, one last question. So the impact fee then is paying for the school facilities and the land, not necessarily the improvement, the grading of the land, the prepping of the land. It's just paying for the building of the structure and the purchase of the land?
All of that is included, and You're going to get a little bit more on that with the next presenter.
Okay.
But all that is rolled into those construction costs.
Okay, thank you.
I have a,
Go ahead.
I have a few questions. One is there enough land available in the Fort Mill School District area to cover needing these new schools?
Yes, so the projected housing units that we're using in the study were provided by the local council of governments. So that looks at available land and permitted developments or approved developments. So our projection for the number of housing units is a local number based on available land.
Okay. Can you explain the difference between the 45-day enrollment and the 2024, 2025 enrollment numbers?
I will turn that over to someone with.
Is that a different person to ask?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I had one. It was actually in the next presentation. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. A part of this presentation was there's a elementary school 12 and 13. Are both of those included in this study, or is it one? It seemed to switch back and forth. I couldn't quite follow.
One second. Yes, because you are using existing fund balance to fund 12. Correct, yes.
So current will just be on 13, this new fee? Did I miss?
You will use impact fees for 13.
Okay.
You're using fund balance. We're still showing 12.
Okay. And the reason I ask, because if 12 is in there, it says utilization without any new building would still only be 94% for the elementary school. That's the only building that I looked, only part that I saw that seemed to be a little concerning for me was just that it didn't look like the elementary school was we were quite ready for it. But I don't know how much that, would adjust the overall impact fee.
Any other questions before we move to the next?
Yeah.
Sounds like we have another
Yeah, real
presenter.
quick. So first of all, thank you for presenting this. One of the things that hasn't been talked about is Act 388 and the overall big scheme. When we look at $73 million of tax break to businesses, residents to the area, that's huge. That's huge. And so when you look at, as we move forward, you look at the concept of growth pays for growth. This is an absolute opportunity for every resident that's living here and every business to have a tax break, to not be paying these exorbitant costs. But again, as you look at the cost of construction, the purchasing of land, nothing goes down, everything's going up. And what we're doing here is we're laying out the groundwork to be able to help out residents and businesses, all right? And we're also laying out the groundwork to help offset, again, some of the costs of the impact of Act 388 on businesses. Because again, we want to be a business-friendly area. We want to be friendly to our residents. So it's a tax break in both directions. So again, growth pays for growth. I highly support this, and thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Britton. I'm with LMG. We're a agency construction management firm. Represent Fort Mill, several other districts, county. We specialize in K-12 and municipal construction. I'm here to talk tonight about some of the questions, Mr. Linton, you brought up. Real quick, we're going to kind of show you how we come up with our numbers. We don't just, this many square feet, this number. There's a little bit of math involved and thought. There's some thought process
Historic and current market, I'm going to show you a picture before COVID and post-COVID, and kind of talk about some other obstacles we're facing. Student enrollment and capacities. Now, this is not something that we actually do as a practice, but we're kind of the gatekeeper. We pull all the information together, and we develop some trends that helps the district, kind of sets the guardrail, so to speak. And then I'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions. Having said that, if you do have questions, please stop me. I'll be happy to try to address them. So the first thing, this is what we call our DE sheet. And the DE sheet to us is a kind of a high-level budgeting process. When we get in, we start developing this with scope, and then we take historical and current market trends and costs, and it's not everything is not just a square foot number. Sometimes there's lump sum numbers, and there's two ways to look at this. Well, multiple ways to look at it. On the left-hand side is our main categories, and then you move from left to right. We start developing numbers. Cost per unit, and incidentally, these are put together in today's numbers. So we project them out using escalation year over year, as well as a contingency, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But everything above where it says facility improvement, subtotal, everything above that is our actual construction budget. There's often some confusion when we're talking about construction budget versus development budget. Both the top and the bottom is our development budget. The bottom component is the architectural fees, testing, state-required testing fees, the FF&E, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. They take the building, shake it, turn it upside and shake it, everything falls out. That falls into kind of the FF&E component. You have to have that to really give an entire project. And incidentally, this is elementary 13. So we've budgeted this, and if you look on the right side, you're needed, you're required, 2029. So you have a year-over-year escalation. So when this was budgeted, we were forecasting about a 4% year-over-year. Looks like we're probably a little light on that with some of the steel trends and costs that we're facing. But you have to kind of take your best guess. We ran into pre-COVID to post-COVID, 2020, 2021, we had about a 16% blended escalation year over year. So that's 32%. The following year was about an 8%, and we kind of settled down. We're in the we're north of 40%, closing in on 50% in escalation costs before COVID to now. So that's how we develop these numbers. We do have a standard kind of a 10%. We're developing the site work. That's included here, and that's one of our biggest problems is all the good land is gone. The question was asked about Fort Mill. We work hard to try to budget and acquire property in the bond program previously to the one that is needed, because it can take 6, 8, 12 months to obtain a piece of property. And properties are not very, unfortunately, we're dealing with retaining walls, wetland streams, and so the development costs on properties are a lot more than they were even 10 years ago. And Fort Mill, if it's either the smallest, one of the smallest geographic in the state, and so those opportunities are not as easy to obtain as they used to be. And that's why we're very proactive trying to acquire those properties. Are there any questions with the DE sheet, how we put those together? Those are kind of eye-opening, I would say the least, the numbers that we're seeing. But when we get into some of these numbers, I think you'll see the issues that we're having. So we're going to get into some historical and current market. I'm going to show 2 pre-COVID projects that we were involved with in the county, and then 4 or 5 post in multiple districts, so it's not just Fort Mill. This is Forest Creek. We bid this project. This was a hard bid. Incidentally, we used multiple delivery methods depending on the weakness of a project. This was bid in July of 19. The number we want to focus on is what we call a 5-foot number, because that's really the only way you can compare one building to the other. Sites are different and really difficult to compare, so the 5-foot number is the one we want to compare and discuss. So this one came in at $195.25 per square foot for the 5-foot number. Again, this is Forest Creek Middle School, July of 19. River Trail Elementary, 2018, a little bit before, $203.82 a foot. Generally speaking, an elementary has fewer students per square foot. It's pretty common to be in the 120 to 135 if you're drilling down to that number in a square feet per student, and which is even more than it was even 20 years ago. There's code issues that increase the requirements, multipurpose rooms, for example. We've been involved in some schools renovating or improving that were around the 100, 105, but you don't see that very often. So now we're getting into post-COVID, and actually within the last 6-7 months, we've got probably $750 million that we've released in the county that we're involved with. So this is Lake Wylie High School. It was bid in May, and so we're $100 more a square foot now on the 5-foot number, and it's a competitive bid. So we're breaking these things down into your core and shell, build and finishes, site work, which again, it's hard to really compare. This was a very difficult site, large site. A lot of wetlands that we had to do, bottomless culverts. It's very difficult to compare. I think it was almost 1 million cubic yards of earth moving, the largest one I've ever been involved with in my life, my career. Food service, plumbing. So if we're walking it down, some of the constraints that we're facing now is electrical, $43.65 a square foot. That's a lot more than I've been involved with. And I would call that an artificial impact. Main reason that in masonry for reasons of shortage of labor have been an impact for us. Those are two of our pain points. Steel, structural steel and aluminum. We just notified that we've got a 5% increase first year, and we're getting another 5%. And the thought is that would be the first wave up to potentially another 10%. So that's a very concerning number for us that we've, for projects we've budgeted, haven't designed a bid yet. So those are some of our issues, but as we spin through those, kind of keep an eye on those numbers. This is Liberty Hill Elementary. This is the one that Ms. Lauder was referring to a few minutes ago. We'll be finishing this year. We were at $319 a foot. So electrical, $42 a foot, $44 a foot. So those numbers are consistent. This was a cement risk, incidentally. So that's another delivery method that we use. Flint Hill Middle, $339. I'm going the wrong way here. I don't know. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay. All right, so this is Flint Hill Middle, $338. We stripped out the athletics, we stripped out the site, and so those numbers are consistent. Now, I will say electrical, this was also a cement risk. We had a lot of competition on the electrical. Apparently, there was a gap in the market, and so we were fortunate to get that competition. And that's the biggest problem, is it's not the general contractor level, it's the subcontractor level where the bottleneck is. So we're going to get into any questions with projects that we've kind of been involved with. So I'm going to take a stab at the enrollment and capacities. This is kind of the base of how we move forward with the need. The district, I've been involved with the district since the late 90s, and this is a trend, actual trend line of every year. We develop these every year since 1999. So we've gone from 4,800 kids to 18,400 and change in 25 years. But that's a pretty staggering number. You do see the trend or the dip from COVID, but it really picked itself back up post-COVID. This is that historical component in combination with some projections. And so the projections are put together by two different individuals. One is Dr. Dale Holden. He uses they use two different methodologies. Dr. Holden uses cohort survival, live births, and then the COG has performed the other, and they use more of a building permit, real estate turnover type of a methodology. Big difference between the two. So we've got those represented, as well as a average, which is the dash green line, and then the red line is a trend that takes all the historical data in consideration. Generally speaking, we use the average for projections and development. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the data that was given to Mr. Bice was the blue line, which is the less aggressive or the more conservative number. Any questions on this? I'll give a highlight of it here. So this is that same information is blown up. So you can kind of see the question about the 45-day number. That's the diamond. So two numbers are important to us, 45-day and 135-day. I think 135-day is the number that the school district's funding is based on. 45-day is another number that is submitted to the state, and I think it's kind of where the enrollment is kind of stabilized. But that's the number that we generally kind of put our arms around for the beginning of the school year. So if you see, we're at 18,000, and you know, the trend is you know, the purple and the blue kind of give us our ditch lines, and historically we've used the green dash line, have been pretty accurate with that number. And then this is our what we call a flame chart. And so a couple things I want to bring to your attention is, right now there's two elementaries that have been frozen and two middle schools. And if you look at the district overall, you might see some capacity. If you look at it, the K-5 overall capacity, the problem is we've got these pockets. And so the green is 90% utilization or less, and 90% is pretty tight. For example, if you have a 4-block system at high school, if that teacher's going to have a planning period, 75% is really the maximum utilization. And these are building capacities, core capacities. They're not necessarily the educational capacity. So we've got, we'll receive some relief when we open up the new elementary and the new middle. But when we're looking at the 90 to 100%, that's 25 kids per seat, per classroom, every block, and that's very, with no planning periods, which is very difficult. We're really rushing to the cliff. You know, obviously, to address 2029, 2030, we're 3-4 years before that you need to have something planning or actually funded or financed. So that's kind of a really good telling chart. It shows the capacity on the left column and kind of moves forward from there. Any questions I might?
No, just a quick comment, though. You know, if you guys were to add in, say, a trailer, right? Capital expenditures wouldn't be able to pay for that trailer. It's going to come out of your school operating costs. I mean, again, as you look at these things, you know, and you look at schools that have added trailers, again, what happens is it ends up impacting your operating costs, which impacts the number of teachers you can hire. So again, it's really important, especially when you look at that from a variable standpoint, so.
So this is where I had my question. Was this 45-day versus the column that's next to it? And a couple of the, again, back to the elementary schools stood out to me. Like Gold Hill has a freeze. It has a 45-day of, 816, but shows 926 for the overall enrollment, but it's still below capacity. You have Kingstown has the same thing. It's at 45-day of 800, but 927 at, I guess, a full year. And then Springfield has a freeze. It's at 800 with a capacity of 900 and showing, in an extreme situation. So I just ask, what's the difference between those? What drives that much higher number?
Well, a 45-day number is kind of what we report internally. It kind of gives you the base point for that year. Now, again, Dr. Holden and the COG, they use different methodologies. The numbers you're seeing are generally towards the end of the school year, and they're not, they're two different things. So they're towards the end of the year. I think Dr. Holden actually uses a 135-day number projection. It's hard to use a previous year's 135 because you do most of your growth, a lot of your growth, I would say more than half your growth over the summer. And so using a 135 from the previous year versus a 45-day, it really get out of whack. I'm not sure that I'm answering that question, but it's not a science that thank you.
And I was going to come up next anyway, so let me, I'm Christy Spears, I'm the board chair, and I'll talk about this for a second first. So if I understood your question about Gold Hill, we'll use that example. So it has a 900-person building capacity. Every single class has the scheduled number of kids. So what it doesn't take into account is a special needs class that only has 5 kids, right? So in order to get to that 900, we would have to have 30 kids in a classroom to make up for the fact that there's only 5 in a special needs class, as an example, right? So that's the building capacity. We don't ever like to see that number. Now, we have on occasion, and so the 45-day, we were sitting at 816, if I can read that right. And the projection, had we done nothing by the end of the school year, would be at 926. That is, I don't know how many kids we've gotten frozen at the moment, but we've got a lot of kids, I think 80 kids from Gold Hill that are taking a second bus right now to go to a different school because Gold Hill is frozen and we can't accept them into the current footprint in that example. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Kind
of. You may. Yes, you may.
I mean, I'll go with it.
No, so what she's saying is if we would not have put the freeze in, we would have been closer to that 926 number rather than the 816 number.
I'm gonna, if there's some additional information that needs to be presented before, we haven't even opened the public hearing yet.
Okay.
I've got a point of order that I'm gonna have to take up with council in about 6 minutes. So if you want to finish
The only thing I was going to do was address a couple of the questions that have been asked, and I think most of them have been answered. I think we took the 45 and the 135. I think we talked about the 94. I wasn't sure about your question about available land, and I want to answer it 2 ways. If you're asking about will we be able to find 20, 30 acres to build the schools that are planned, the answer is yes. It is not the most desirable land, but there are still lots available that we are actively pursuing for future school sites, as well as we've got a couple that are banked. And then when it comes to, is there available land to build all the houses, we receive from the county, the city, and the town, the developments that have already been approved, and so they have already been approved on this acreage for these 300 houses and things along those lines. So that is what we're basing the future demands on. So I think those were the questions so far. I will stop there. I just wanted to say thank you for considering this, and I'll maybe be back up if there are more
Madam
questions.
Chair, quick question, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right here, quick question. The flame chart,
Yes.
Do you all ever share this data with the realtors in the Fort Mill area to encourage them to get families to consider buying houses in the areas where their children can go to school? Orchard Park as an example. I lived in Baxter when it was full.
Right.
Now I see it's got the lowest capacity.
I
Do
will
you
I will put
encourage
it
that?
this way, we certainly make it available. We review it at least once a year in a public forum, and we definitely communicate with our realtors about the schools that are on a freeze so that they are aware and can let the families know when they're looking at a home that their child may not be able to attend the school that's around the corner because of the freeze. Definitely, that is information that we've made available and I know is talked about a lot.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to conclude that the presentation portion of this is concluded. When we come back out, we will open up public hearing for any discussion. At this point in time, though, I do need to request that we have a motion to suspend the rules and take up one aspect of the receipt of legal advice litigation update that appears in our executive session. We need to take an item out of order and for council to go into executive session for that purpose. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Yeah, motion to go into executive session for legal update.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move into executive session and we'll be out as soon as we complete that. Executive session, no action was taken. We are now going to resume with our program, regularly scheduled program. At this time, my understanding is that we've concluded the presentation period. Is there anyone here? We will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against the request? If you'll come forward and give your name and address.
Everybody again. Natalia Mitchell, 965 Bridle Path, Fort Mill. Let me start like this. So I really appreciate all the work that you guys do and the challenges you face in making the decisions that shape our community every day. And I also fully understand the need for impact fees to fund our growing schools. It's clear that none of us want to see the overcrowded classrooms or underfunded education. That's clear. But I believe that before approving more fees or asking families to shoulder additional costs, there is a bigger issue that must be addressed first. And I'm going to call it the CILFAB saga. Right now, every day, there is a cloud of uncertainty, both figuratively and literally speaking, hanging over Fort Mill. I talk to families every day, and guys, they're just very anxious. Some have already sold their homes. I see people move away. Some have moved to private schools. I discuss it with fellow mothers daily, or have chosen to go the way of homeschooling. So I believe that ignoring these concerns in discussions about projected growth is simply not honest. We all know that Fort Mill School District's last capacity projections didn't add up, and pretending the situation isn't affecting enrollment only undermines the trust that we should have with each other. The reality is that 6 schools are now within a 1-mile radius of CILFAB Solar, where an elementary school is being built next to a 50-foot acid scrubber and bunkers of explosive chemicals stored on site that I cannot even begin to pronounce. This doesn't sit well with the community, and while a judge may be involved, I believe that you guys, as our elected leaders, still have the power to prioritize the health of our children, the health of the community, and enforce the laws that are designed to protect us. I'm asking you to take a stand, and before considering new fees, please show us that you're committed to resolving existing issues first. Please prove that our children and teachers and first responders come first. I believe it is entirely reasonable to wait till the fall, see what the real enrollment numbers are, and make sure that these schools are safe before approving more money. This is an opportunity for you to lead with confidence, to show that our leaders listen and act when concerns are raised. And I believe that you can do this. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against?
My name is Julio Marino, I live at 1098 Rolling Park Lane, Fort Mill. I'm against it just for the fact that all these money that they charge in, to build a new house, that it's actually hurting me, like I want to build the house for my daughter. But it's costing me $8,000, right now $18,000 and I think like $400 and something to do it. I'm not a builder, but so this is hurting me. And also, they talk about this money going to ECF taxpayers. Well, it really doesn't. I pay over $8,000 of property tax in Fort Mill. And we have another 5 acres that I bought for my kids. I pay a lot of taxes. It really doesn't help us. It's just increasing every price, the more money you charge builders, the more they're gonna charge homeowners. It really doesn't help us, the taxpayers in Fort Mill. It's not really actually helping us. And the other thing is, where are you guys finding all this land? There's no more land to build in Fort Mill. There's just nothing. So all this money, when they get all this money, where's it gonna go? Where's it gonna sit? There's no more land. There's nowhere to build no more. So that concern that I have is, and the other thing too is, I'm a CPA, the state of Massachusetts. So I deal with a lot of accounting and numbers. I see police officers getting paid dirt money in the city of Fort Mill, in your county as well. Why not grab some of the money? We want to increase the fee. It's fine. But grab some of the money, not just for the schools. Let's help out the firemen, the police departments, the one that actually not getting paid enough. They're the one protecting us. They should be getting paid more than a UPS driver, nothing against UPS drivers. But the police officers and firemen should be getting paid good money, they're not. We look at their salaries, it's awful compared to what the average in the country is. So if you're gonna increase this fee, let's not grab it just for the schools. Let's grab it also for the other departments that are actually keeping us in Fort Mill safe. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Madam Chair, members of council, my name's Martha Kynard, 409 Fairway Drive in Fort Mill. I want to take a step back and talk and help y'all understand why these fees matter to Fort Mill School District. In 1996, Fort Mill had just under 4,000 students and 5 schools. Fort Mill High, Fort Mill Middle, Fort Mill Elementary, and at the time, we had just opened Gold Hill Elementary and Gold Hill Middle. In fact, Dr. Epps opened Gold Hill Middle back in 1996. You were a young man. Tech Dowling was our superintendent at the time, and I was chair of the Fort Mill School Board. Tech was a visionary, and he recognized that our rapid growth wasn't slowing down, and he knew we needed a plan to manage it. He proposed the idea of school impact fees. And while we faced strong opposition from developers, builders, and realtors, we moved forward. With only a small window of time and opportunity, we set the impact fee at $2,500. That was 1996. And that was for each new construction. We got a lot of pushback, but we knew it was the right move for our schools and community. I'll never forget the night our application was due. Tech and I rushed to Columbia with a highway patrol escort, making it just before the midnight deadline. As someone who's been a realtor in Fort Mill for nearly 40 years, I can tell you with confidence those impact fees did not slow growth and have not slowed growth. Baxter Village was just an idea on paper at that time. Tech believed that using impact fees, we could reduce our district's debt and keep taxes lower, and eventually build schools entirely funded by these fees. That vision is now becoming a reality with our first impact school nearly complete. Today, Fort Mill has over 18,500 students, 20 schools, and 2 more under construction. Our school system is one of the strongest in the state, driving increasing property values and providing state-of-the-art facilities for our children. At the end of the day, the real beneficiaries of impact fees are our students, and that's how it should be. A strong school system supports a strong community, and I urge you to continue supporting impact fees as a vital tool for managing growth and ensuring a bright future for Fort Mill and its students. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Lynn Martin, 1673 Apple Tree Lane in Fort Mill. I've been in Fort Mill for 40 years now, and when I moved here August 20th, 1984, Fort Mill schools were one of the best in the state. And here 40-plus years later, Fort Mill schools are some of the best in the state. And when you talk about people moving to Fort Mill, early on, they talk about the schools, and that's a big reason why. I grew up in a county in South Carolina that's on the other end of the spectrum, and I see the devastation of not having funds and not having quality school buildings and the importance of it. But why I'm up here tonight is I have a statement from Daylor Hart, president of Springland, who many of you know has developed some great residential and business properties in Fort Mill that makes Fort Mill a great place to live. And I'd like to read it right quick, please. For the same reasons that existed 5 years ago, I continue to support the impact fee proposed for the Fort Mill School District in 2025. Because of the punitive commercial tax structure existing in South Carolina, it continues to be a struggle to attract businesses and employers to the area. To compound the problem, residential growth continues unchecked. Unchecked, this situation will continue to snowball until business has no choice but to move across the border and take advantage of significantly lower property taxes in North Carolina. Unfortunately, I was unable to update the numbers for the meeting tonight, but the specifics from 2020 remain applicable to the situation today. There has been no alternative offered by any group, political or otherwise, that would offset the future cost of school improvements better than this impact fee. As a developer, it is unnatural for me to support an impact fee of any kind. This is especially true in Fort Mill, where the companies I oversee have thousands of homes already entitled which could be built today. These impact fees represent a direct cost of tens of millions of dollars to our existing holdings. The reason I support this effort is simple. Without our quality schools and quality business community, our quality of life will diminish, as will our property values. I continue to hope that the legislature in Columbia will address Act 388, which punishes Fort Mill and the rest of the state. It accounts for much of the reasons South Carolina ranks consistently in the bottom 2 states with Mississippi nationally for our public education. Until that happens, I haven't seen a better local answer than these impact fees. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else?
Kevin Brackett, 1675 York Highway. I am a resident of Fort Mill. I've lived there for over 20 years. We built our house in 2003. And when I moved in, I knew what I was signing up for. I was signing up for one after another series of bond issues that I would have to vote on. I would have to make a decision, my wife and I, as to whether or not we were going to approve another $200 million here, another $250 million, every time we turned around. Now, every single time we were called to, we answered with a yes vote, because there's nothing more important than strong schools, and that's what makes that community great. But the cost should not be borne exclusively by the residents. The people coming there are coming there because they know that it is an outstanding school system, and their children will get first-rate educations there. That's why they want to come there. So they're moving in, and it has not slowed down. Y'all may recall, some of you who are on council, in 2018. I came and spoke then when the impact fee was being discussed. I spoke vigorously in favor of it, just like I am now. I would make it $50,000 if I could, because it will not slow growth down. I know there's a number of ways you can measure how growth is. I have my own personal measurement that I use, and I find it to be very accurate. How long does it take me to get to work every single day? And I'll tell you, over the years, it's increased pretty steadily. If it slowed growth down a little bit, I'd be delighted, because maybe the roads would have time to catch up. And you're going to start seeing it in York, because I see those white pipes sticking up out of the ground all over York. It's same problem's going to happen. Maybe not in our lifetime, because I'm an old man now and you got a little gray in your beard, but I'm telling you, the same problems. People are going to be standing here talking about 25 years from now, and they're going to be saying the same thing. We have got to get a handle on this, and this is the best possible way we have. This is the best possible answer for this particular situation. I am delighted that $65 million was available to provide for a new elementary school in Fort Mill. And you did not have to tap this wallet to build it. And I hope that as we move forward, that will continue. I sure do. I hope that you will support this 100%. Like I said, I don't think it goes far enough, but I hope you support every single penny of this, because we need it. Growth will not slow down. The only thing that will slow down is the hemorrhaging of my checking account. And that is the same thing that you will hear from anybody you talk to. Every single one of you is a public servant and a leader in your communities. People come to you and ask for your opinions on issues like this, where you live and where, you know, they want to know, because they know you're a public servant and a public leader. You sit on county council, they ask your opinion. They do the same thing for me. And 100%, when you tell people in Fort Mill, this is what the impact fee is, and this is what it's doing. It's spreading the cost. Growth isn't paying for growth. It's kind of helping pay for growth in a good way, but it's not 100% paying for it. We're still shouldering our burden. You heard about the $200 million bond issue that just went down. We're still going to have bond issues. We're still going to support them, because we still value the schools. We still value the first-rate education that our kids are getting. We're going to continue to support it. We just need some help, y'all. Please help us.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak?
Thank you, Councilman. Dean Fell, York County Regional Chamber of Commerce. Quite frankly, most of my points have already been made. Councilman Audette pointed out the damage of Act 388 in the state of South Carolina. Businesses pay 100% of operation taxes once these businesses get built. Impact fees are the only thing that can help reduce some of the tax burden on our businesses. I represent right at 800 businesses in York County that are investors. Many of those are in Fort Mill and TEK, and we want to keep them there. Second item I'd like to just point out is the $73 million that have already been collected in impact fees. If it wasn't collected that way, businesses would have paid for that. Next is, have we been good stewards of that money? And the Fort Mill School District has been second to none in this state. It's the #1 school district in the state. It's providing great education for our future workforce, and we want to continue that. The only way we continue that is to make sure those numbers don't hit that 95-100% rate. We need student ratios to teachers at a low, reasonable rate. The last thing I would point out is what's already been said. The chamber was criticized 7 years ago when we supported this, and prior when we supported it, from the developer community saying this was going to end in slow growth. You've heard it over and over. It has not. We've not seen that. The growth is robust in Fort Mill, and we expect it to remain that way. So the York County Regional Chamber wholeheartedly asks you guys to continue to support the impact fees for Fort Mill School District. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening. My name is Jan Martin. I live at 1673 Apple Tree Lane in Fort Mill. I stand before you tonight as a parent, a community member, and the most recent co-chair of the Fort Mill School District Bond Committee. I want to share my perspective from each of those roles to highlight why continuing the impact fee is not just beneficial, it's essential. As a community member, I have witnessed Fort Mill's unprecedented growth for nearly 3 decades, student enrollment nearly quadrupling in that time. Our community is thriving while other areas have stagnated or have regressed. Residents stepping up to meet this challenge, passing 4 bonds in the last 15 years to support our schools. As a parent with 2 children who have been educated in the Fort Mill School District, I have seen the district not only managing growth but excelling despite it, continuing to provide a world-class education for every single student. Fort Mill consistently leading the state in nearly every academic category for traditional K-12 schools. Our schools ranking in the top 1% of districts nationwide, a remarkable achievement and a testament to our community's commitment to education. And as a bond committee chair, I have seen our community rally behind the district's mission, ensuring every student has access to the resources they need, including the Early Childhood Education Center that was approved. The tangible benefits, financial benefits of the impact fee, $70 million in bond debt avoided because the impact fee fully funded Flint Hill Elementary School. The impact fee offsetting costs for Flint Hill Middle School, reducing the need to fully utilize approved bond funds, real savings for taxpayers. A more stable, lower millage rates, preventing the drastic swings in debt service we might have otherwise faced. It has been 7 years since this impact fee was implemented, and the results speak for themselves. Every predicted downside has failed to materialize while the benefits continue to grow. By renewing this impact fee, we are making a fiscally responsible choice, one that ensures our schools remain strong, our tax burden remains manageable, and our community continues to thrive. I urge you to vote in favor of renewing the impact fee and allow us to build on this success. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. It seems like we have a lot of folks that are here in support. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna ask those of you that are here to support the impact fee and supporting doing this. If you don't mind standing, we'll go ahead and recognize you. I recognize those in support. Okay, I think that's the majority of everyone sitting in the audience. I just want to, not that I intend to squelch discussion, I just want to make sure that we don't repeat same content and make sure that we're able to recognize the folks, that, you know, make sure that you feel like you're being heard. So if there is anyone else who wishes to be heard.
Just very briefly, my name's Sarah Sproul. I'm with the law firm of Hainsworth Sinclair Boyd. I have been living with Fort Mill's impact fee for a long time now. And I just came up to say that what the ask here is consistent with the act. It's the same fee structurally as was passed in 2018, same study firm, same methodology. It's just a new CIP and a new maximum allowable amount. And this ask is all as was envisioned when the CIP was last amended in December of 2002.
Thank you, ma'am.
Scott Cogrenauer, 122 West Oak Street, the beautiful Whitewood Park neighborhood of Fort Mill. Once again, small business owner, because our small business property taxes are so much, we got CAM charges in Fort Mill right now at $14 a square foot on new properties. So when we go buy a $20 hamburger, a lot of that money goes to pay those CAM charges, which go to offset our taxes. So this will help small businesses in our Fort Mill School District. Thank you.
I think maybe I can just wrap it up. Christy Spears, 7102 Anchorage Lane, TEK 29708. I first of all just want to thank you guys for your support. We are grateful that you supported it in 2018 for those of you who were on the council at the time. And again in 22, we are extremely grateful for Ray Felder for helping this become an option for schools, because it wasn't prior to 2016 when she was able to get this passed in the legislature. I'm thankful for all of our community members that have shown up. We weren't going to parade everybody up here, and we didn't have to have the McKelvey Center this time. I do think, though, it's important that some of the things that we've talked about, we pride ourselves in being able to stay ahead, that we don't want to hit 94%. We really don't. That puts a school at an uncomfortable position to have to move kids around and have art on cart and things like that. That is not the way we like to perform in our schools. So I do think it's important that we stay ahead with the schedule. And if, in fact, our numbers don't grow, we will delay. And in fact, if you looked back at the 2017, 2018 presentation, we thought elementary school 13 was going to be needed in 28. In this presentation, it is now needed in 29. So we continue to review the needs every year and don't build any sooner than the numbers pan out as far as what's projected in the short term. So we will continue to stay ahead of that. And then the last thing I wanted to add is we did have one other thing that I think it's important, just in real numbers. Over the life of this impact fee, we will have avoided about 30 mills in taxes, if you want actual numbers. We were headed towards a position in the 120s for debt service millage. We have stayed in the low 70s, maybe as much as 80. So we have avoided real tax implications for all of our residents. And so I thank you for your support and hope that you will continue to do the same.
Thank you, ma'am.
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the item. Any discussion?
Short comment. I'm like the children you all take care of. I like to understand the reason why. And tonight, you have shared enough, and the citizens that have spoken have shared enough for me to understand why I should support this. So thank you.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, just a quick comment. I want to thank everybody coming here tonight. It makes a world of a difference to hear from the public and hear from everybody across the board. So I thank you all. Thank you for what you said tonight and what you're doing for the kids of York County and Fort Mill. Thank you. Appreciate y'all. Excellent.
All right, Kevin, now it's my turn to talk. Cause I'm gonna put a fence up and I'm gonna put bulls in it, because most people that come from your direction are scared of the cows now. But I would like to ask this question. I ain't trying to be smart or nothing. But out of all y'all that are in this room, how many of y'all are original from Fort Mill? I remember years ago when Fort Mill was no bigger than York. And it ain't really been that long ago.
Sure hasn't.
And Kevin made some statements, and one reason why I run is because I don't want to see what happened to Fort Mill happen to my side of the county. And we're fighting it every day. And I'm fighting it against the city of York. But impact fees, to me, would be fine if they went to the ones causing the impact. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way or anything, but there's way more to a county than just the schools. We struggle to fix the roads. I personally, just like the gentleman said, I have youngins that are involved, and you know it, Kevin, in law enforcement, that are firemen. And I've always been amazed how there's such big salaries out there, but most teacher, firemen, and police all average around a salary of $43,000 to $53,000. Now, us that are in farming and heavy equipment repair, I ain't even gonna go there on our struggles, but you've got to understand that everybody is not blessed at making the same incomes and whatnot. And you got to also be really concerned when you put these impact fees, especially for what y'all are asking, and I'm going to pass it tonight, but you got to understand and also look and be real careful to think, and I don't want to use the wrong term, are you building a certain status of salary of neighborhood where only certain people can afford to live in a certain area? And I don't mean that in a bad way or a negative way. And Kevin's also absolutely right. They are coming. And Chrissy's lower district, in my district over here, we're going to have to be concerned with that. My goodness, the whole state is. A while ago when we were sitting here joking around, I wanted to shout out so bad, why don't y'all just put signs up over there that say, just keep on going, don't stop here. But we got to get together on this thing. The growth to the south has got to get under control. We can't afford it infrastructure-wise or anything else. I mean, we're struggling with the road issue. And frankly, y'all, when people are calling, the first thing out of their mouth, I want my road fixed. I pay taxes. And then I say, well, get your tax statement. And they say, yeah, I got it. I say, what does it say most of your taxes went to? Y'all know what it is? The schools. It don't leave us much for the firemen or anything else. And then the municipalities decide to annex in more. And that takes away from our fire departments. And it's just one thing after another. So I hope y'all realize that this ball that started rolling is just getting bigger and bigger. And don't nobody know how to stop it. But that's my 2 cents worth.
Anyone else? I think the majority of this council has already spoken that we're going to pass first reading on this. I will say, there's some things that I do want to say. Anyone who looks at my record, you're going to see somebody who supports public schools. My kids went to public schools. I support us keeping our funds in public schools. I think the world of Fort Mill schools. I think Fort Mill has some tremendous leadership. I have a great relationship with the folks over there, and I think y'all do a tremendous job. You certainly don't get to be #1 in the state for no reason. But I do think a large part of that has to do with socioeconomics. And I live in a district where folks don't make this kind of money. And when I look at a number like $30,000 to go into a house that has no value in the house, it's simply a number to say, hey, we're holding a placeholder for you to build a school. And you add on, you know what rates are right now? I do, because my daughter's a teacher, 7% to purchase a new house. By the time you finance that, you're talking over $70,000 for a price tag on a house that does nothing but increase the cost of that house without adding any value to the house. It is simply to go towards the schools. This number tonight to me, and this there's a lot of information that's been presented. I supported the impact fee for Fort Mill when it first came through, but I'm struggling with this number, and I'm letting you know that as I'm talking here. And it has nothing to do with me struggling with supporting our schools. It has to do with the overall picture. If anything, what this presents tonight is the problem with Act 388 and how it's impacting our schools. I don't think that's enough to justify some of these numbers, and I do have concerns where if we want to have an area that, how are we going to allow our first responders, our fire, our teachers, how are they going to afford to live there? The community wants to have restaurants. How are you going to afford for these folks to live there who do that job? Does that just mean we push them somewhere else? I think this is a bigger conversation. This is a concerning conversation for me. I'm speaking from the heart here. This does not make any sense. It does not make sense. We have 2 council members who aren't here tonight. And I think that there has to be some additional discussion on this. I do support first reading on this. And I want to be very clear that I support our public schools, and I'm very thankful for the work that all of our public schools do in York County. We all have different issues that plague us throughout our county, and it's very interesting to me to see the differences in each of our districts. My understanding is nobody else has any other comments, so all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, first reading passes. Move now to old business, item number 1, rezoning action, consider third reading, case number 24-58, tax map number 529-000061, zoning request to rezone from AGC to RUD, 5.2 acre parcel in District 4. We have a motion to approve with the deed restrictions.
Yep, motion approved with the deed restrictions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are those deed restrictions in place and everything? The question for legal?
I do not know if they've been filed, but they are in place before council.
It's all been approved by all parties.
Yes.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving now to item number 2, council to consider amending and second reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 155 zoning code, subchapter E, procedures, to add an administrative adjustments procedure to allow minor deviations to quantitative development standards in order to avoid unnecessary hardships that could result from strict application of the zoning code, to provide for public hearing and to provide for other matters relating thereto. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. There was some feedback that was provided to council in response to the questions that were submitted by several of the folks. One of those questions was, is this the question that applies to the lot size configuration?
Yes, it is. The minimum lot sizes are specifically exempted from that ordinance.
So there's no way to amend the ordinance?
That's only for minimum lot size. So
I guess
it would not be going
the legal
smaller.
question was, can it be amended to include a lot size configuration? If council does that?
There's no maximum limit. It would be a administrative adjustment to make it smaller, which I think at 10%, it could be. Don't know that the recommendation is that that would be a prudent amendment to perform.
I personally would like for lot sizes to be waivable or administratively, whatever we're doing with these. Just because if you get down to let's say you gotta have a minimum of 10 acres and you're at 9.95 acres or 9.9 acres, I mean, that's close enough. So
Is there an amendment?
I would like to amend it to include lot sizes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so we have an amendment to the main motion to include lot sizes as part of that.
Subject to the adjustment, the 10%. Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
We'll move back to the main motion. Any other discussion on the main motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving now to item number 3, council to consider second reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 155 zoning code to eliminate accessory structure standards unique to the Lake Wiley overlay, to revise the maximum size of accessory structures, to prohibit accessory structures in specified locations, to clarify the definition of accessory structure, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters relating thereto. Have a motion?
I make a motion to approve with amendment, well, maybe. I don't know what my motion will be.
We are still at second reading. Can I ask, from the last council meeting, we did have some questions from council. And I know that there was a memo that was produced. What were the changes in that? What were the considerations that we were asked staff to look at? Do you have that memo?
I'll let our planning director share.
Yeah, one of the questions that we had was, why was the approach in the current draft to go by a proportionate percentage of the principal structure is the maximum amount of accessory structure? The short answer there is that was how the county already does that measurement. And the amendment makes it a little bit looser, a little bit easier to do that. And there are a list of, just from our comparison jurisdictions, which we have 16 of, 8 are large counties, 8 are local jurisdictions. There are 9 different ways to do this across the
Jonathan,
16.
I remember the feedback that we have from staff. Can you refresh my memory and council's memory as to what the questions that council had, the specific questions that council had about this?
Yep, that was the question was, can you explain what the other ways of doing this are, and why did the proposal that's before you all include the current version?
And that was Jonathan, that was a ratio of the principal to.
That's right.
Or accessory to principal structure, which I think you all recommended 65%.
Yes, sir.
And if I recall, Councilor Litton, am I correct that you had an inquiry about increasing that ratio, or maybe even going all the way up to 100%?
I did. The question was, why was the method that we have chosen as better than the other methods? Though he did answer in a correct answer, which is that's because that's what we've been doing. So here's where I got hung up on my amendment was I would like to have it controlled by the impervious area of the lot, which is a part of the zoning code already. So I don't know if that would be doubling up on the zoning code.
I think for purposes of where we are tonight, and considering this is still second reading, I think lacking a specific amendment to the request, if we move forward with the amendment, I think what it does is eliminate the distinction in the area. It makes it countywide, and that was one of the main considerations. I do think that having some additional feedback prior to third reading, and amendments can be made then, that we might ought to consider taking a look at. I think the points are valid. If someone wants to build a bigger garage and they don't live in an HOA, who are we to tell them that their garage can't be bigger than their house? I just, if they want, especially if they want to park an RV and they're allowed to do that, I mean, I'm willing to consider an amendment. At this point in time, we've had a long night and we don't have an amendment to consider, so I would request that council, in order to move this along, that we just have the motion to approve as is.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We do have item number 15 that has been brought out from consent that will be new business. Council to provide second reading of an ordinance authorizing the assignment of the existing agreement between York County and Fort Mill Rescue regarding the provision of EMS services within the county to Atrium Health Fort Mill EMS Inc. AHFM, conditioned upon AHFM and meeting and maintaining the requirements in State Regulation 61-7 regarding emergency medical services, and further conditioned upon AHFM reaching a new agreement with York County addressing inter alia the terms and conditions for AHFM's participation as an EMS provider operating within York County and as a part of York County's 911 dispatch system, providing dispatch response and drive time standards and requirements for AHFM, establishing staffing minimum levels for AHFM resource units, setting insurance coverage requirements for AHFM, and providing for other matters related thereto. If we could get a motion to defer this item until the next council meeting, we do have a public hearing. I would request that council make that.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Motion and second.
Defer until the 17th of March.
We are deferring. It will be second reading. It will also be public hearing that's already been determined. At this point in time, out of an abundance of caution and in order to be more transparent with the community, to get the terms on paper, that will allow additional time in order for those terms to be made and to be made public in time for the public hearing. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Committee and other reports. We do have a report from Justice of Public Safety, Chairman Tommy Atkins.
All right, let's see. The Justice and Public Safety Committee met on February 19th, 2025. Present was myself, Tom Audette, and Watts Huckabee. The committee received a report from management, Mr. David Gardner, for the proposed 5 to 10-year plan for the fire and the EMS. No action was taken. The next meeting will be held on April 30th, 2025.
Thank you, sir. We do not have any citizen concerns. Do we have any council member new non-agenda comments before we go into executive session?
Yes, please. I'll go quickly. Number one, I want to applaud you and staff for putting transportation on our agenda I think it's every other council meeting. I'd mentioned a year ago that I felt like we needed to be talking about transportation. I know it'll take us a little bit of time to get going, but there's a lot to discuss here. It came up tonight in conversation. I think that's important. Number two, it's been mentioned before that when we go into executive session that we ought to be talking about every legal matter that's hit a council agenda, and I'd like for us to pick up on that so that we can actually get an update on each legal matter that's come to council previously. Number three, Tommy touched on this a little bit that I'd written down while the presentation was being made tonight. I too feel that where the school district, or school districts, all four, if they come to us for a fee, that fee's to purchase land and then pay for the improvement on the land. But we shouldn't overlook all the rest of the expenses that are associated with growth. And I think we need to be planning for that, whether you want to call it an impact fee or adequate public facilities, whatever it is. I look forward to that hitting our agenda so we can discuss that further, because those are huge items that ultimately we're going to have to tax for. So I'd like for us to begin to plan towards that. When that hits a committee, I'm not sure. Last thing I was just going to mention is I'm excited about our ED meeting this coming Thursday, where we're going to be talking about what we should do with the ED fund, what we should invest in with the ED fund, and then what does an ED board look like in the future. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just a real quick comment about public participation. You know, we had a lot of people get up tonight and speak, and we appreciate each and every person that gets up and speaks. It's so important for the public to be involved. And again, I want to give a shout out to the public for participating in the process. So thank you.
Do we have a motion for executive session?
Yes, personal matter, county attorney and clerk to council annual review.
We also have one other item in the litigation update. We only took one portion of that
Oh, okay.
earlier tonight, sir.
All right, and then receipt of legal advice litigation update.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move straight into executive session. We are out of executive session. No action was taken. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.